Hello and welcome back to Kimekomi. I know it's been a long time since I posted on this, and I'm sorry, I've just been doing other things and work has been crazy. I can't really remember where I left off, so instead of actually going to YouTube and watching and figuring out where I left off, I'm just going to start where I think we left off, which is, I'm going to start with sanding. So at this point I've shown you all the cloth and how to take care of the various parts of your model. Now I'm going to show you how to actually get started making the doll. So the first thing you have is your little head, right? First we want to take care of it, because usually when you have the head, it's been all wrapped up. This is a really pretty little girl who's part of a Hina set. But you can see her long hair is kind of curled in the back, and it's not supposed to be. So what you can do about this is don't iron it, because it'll melt, and don't get it wet, because it will shrink in weird ways. What you should do is just let it take care of itself naturally, and you can do that by finding a shot glass, or I think most of them have holes in the bottom. Just put a dowel in the bottom of the hole and stand it up so that it, I'm going to use this bottle, I think. There we go. And we'll just leave her like that. That little bottle is perfect. We'll just leave her like that, and her hair will straighten itself out over a few weeks. And, you know, by the time her hair straightens herself out, you'll be ready to actually put the head on. So I'm going to put that aside. When you're handling the head, by the way, don't ever touch the face, because the oils on your hands will kind of destroy the gofun. And, you know, with this, I made sure this bottle was really clean and free of sticky stuff before I put her head in it. But yeah, don't directly touch her face. Instead, handle her by her ears. Alright. With the male dolls, you don't have to worry about this so much. Alright, when you get your doll kit, it's going to come in one of two shapes. I think I've probably been over this already. You're either going to get it with this nice little coat of white primer on it. These are usually the learner's kits when you're taking a formal course on how to do it. And they put this white primer on the kit, on the doll base itself, which can show you, it does a pretty good job of showing you where you have and have not sanded. However, it's also pretty much impossible to get off. So your objective with this is going to be to sand most of it off, and you don't have to get all of it, just most of it. And you're just going to use how it feels as your guide to whether you're done or not. And so yeah, this is what one of those looks when it's properly finished. I need to do a little, there you go. I need to do a little more work on this one. But that's about the level you're going to be. You don't need to get all the white paint off. You just need to get most of it. And it's fairly smooth. This is, by the way, the body for that head I just put in the bottle. She's kind of wrapped up in her little kimono. It's really cute. Most kits that you just buy by yourself off the internet or off of eBay are going to come like this, without the primer. This one doesn't even have little armholes cut in it, which is going to be fun. So you have a little hole for the head, and it's just a very rough, compacted sawdust. And it's actually quite loose. These ones with the primers, the sawdust is packed a lot more tightly, and so they can take a lot more beating when you're pushing the fabric in. These tend to break a little bit more easily. However, they're a lot easier to sand. So I'm going to go over the basics of sanding both types, since they're slightly different. So, you know, maybe it will, one of the ways I show you will apply to your doll. Sanding is actually the easiest step. It tends to take a very long time. But the tools that you need, as I went over earlier, you need like either some just normal sandpaper that you can get at the hardware store, or I like to use this little thing, which is a sponge that has leather on one side of it, and I have a little roll of sticky tape, sandpaper tape, and I just roll that onto the sponge, and it sticks. And I can just rip it off at the edge here. That's perfect for sanding. I'm going to wear an apron for when I'm doing this, or I'm going to just put down some newspaper so I don't make a huge mess. Anyway, with the prime dolls, a technique that I learned really fairly recently was that you can get a washcloth and you can wet it down just slightly. And then you can just gently brush it on here. Not too thick, don't soak it, because then, you know, you're going to get some structural problems with the doll. But just a little bit of it helps to soften up that primer, and it also keeps it out of the air when you're sanding it down, so you don't get white dust everywhere. Which, you know, if you've done a few of these is really nice because it does get everywhere. So anyway, I've got my little thingy here, and it's nice and it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding this girl right here. And the flat bits are really easy, so I'm just going to get the big general bits and not worry so much about the tight little corners right now. You'll do those once your sandpaper starts to wear down. You'll notice that it starts to get harder to sand after a while, and then that's when we start to concentrate on the corners. So bear with me for just a moment, and I'll start sanding here. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. It usually takes me a few hours to sand it, mainly. Some people it takes a few days. It really just depends on how fast you go. So I'm just going to start with the bigger parts here and just do it maybe panel by panel. And you can see that when I sand it, it starts to change color. See, that's a nice contrast there. So I can see the bits that I've sanded already. Of course, giving that a little blow will kind of get rid of that color. But you want to pretty much get so that you don't get, so that it's pretty much straight off color and you don't get a lot of speckling, and that's kind of how you can tell that it's going to be smooth. That and just use your hands to judge. But yeah, there are a lot of areas here that need to be smoothed out. So I'll be back in a moment. All right, we're making some progress here with the sanding. Can you tell? Now you can notice that I've sanded most of the big areas, but there are lots of little areas that I've missed, like under the sleeve here. You can tell that it's still quite dark under there. I'll get to that in a second. While you're sanding, you want to be following the natural curves of the body. So with the sleeve, and if you start to notice how they're supposed to go. With the sleeve, these curves are supposed to be here, and they're nice smooth curves, and you can stretch fabric over them. Usually curves are kind of a bad thing, especially if they're within one panel. Here's another example of a curve that's supposed to be there. You'll notice that this panel with the obi on it is just slightly higher. Let's see if I can turn it so that you can see it there. It's just slightly higher than the rest of the body. It shouldn't be the same level as the rest of the body. It's obviously, the kimono is actually folded over there. It actually helps to actually look at pictures of real people in kimonos. And then you'll start to understand what the different parts are supposed to represent. And that way, when you start to pick out your own cloth, you'll be putting the cloths in the right place. So yeah, this little curve is also supposed to be here. A lot of the times within a single panel, you'll run into curves that are not supposed to be there. Let's see if I can find one on this doll. Okay. Oh, where is it? Alright, so the back of the sleeve here has a lot of really rough little kind of jaggedy lines in it. And those are actually, yeah, it's not quite smooth. That curve kind of goes up and then goes down. It's kind of hard for you to see it there, but if you had it in front of you, it would be fairly easy to see. Another good example is this doll right here. The lining on her robe in the front tends to go down a little bit in a curve on the side. So I guess if you view it from top down, there you go. See how the lining of her robe is a little bit curved on the corners? That curve isn't supposed to be there. So you want to be careful when you're sanding that you will get a nice line there, nice right angle. If you can't quite get it when you're sanding, that's okay because we can fill it in and mod it later. With this doll, that's going to have to happen that way. You can also see the curve on this side. See where my finger is. That right there should be a right angle. It's actually more of a 120-degree angle right there, and that could be either sanded down or we could repair it with putty later. In fact, repairing it with putty later is probably the best thing. But you want to watch out for curves like that and make sure that when you can sand them down and when you can sand them down and have it look good, you do so. So anyway, I'll continue sanding on this little girl. Just wanted to make sure there that we were